Hello everyone, and welcome back to our journey through Norse mythology. Last time we have left off with talking about the supposed 9 realms of the Norse mythological universe, and the only realm that is left for us to explore now is of course the home of the gods, Asgard. In this video we will take the image of Asgard in its golden age for our exploration, as at that time all the gods that would have dwelt there were already born and present and made their own homes within the realm's borders. Now, without further ado, let's get to it. A marvelous rainbow bridge, Bifrost, connects Midgard and Asgard together, and at its end stands the first hall we'll see on our way. Himinbjorg, meaning Heaven's Cliff, is the place where the rainbow bridge meets the edge of heaven, and it is here where the noble Heimdall, the warden of the gods, had made his home. His well-built house, or more of a watchtower, stands imposing at the end of Bifrost, and from there Heimdall oversees any and all would-be invaders who would as much as dare set foot in Asgard. Right beyond Heimdall's home, however, towers a structure far grander and more massive. Asgard's walls stand tall and mighty around the lands of the gods, so strong that even giants would find it impossible to batter them down, and so high that even dragons would think twice than to soar up to such altitudes. And right beyond those magnificent fortifications lie the lands of the gods. Each deity claimed a part of Asgard for their dwelling place, and erected glorious halls to live in. Interesting thing to note is that the gods aren't the only ones that inhabit Asgard, and in reality, elves live there as well. In the Ballad of Grimnir, a poem that holds many descriptions of Asgard, Odin himself shares, in his depiction of Asgard, the fact that the elves indeed live there as well. Quote, "The land is holy that lies hard by the elves and gods together." End quote. This is no surprise to us, as we mentioned in our previous video that the gods and the elves held deep friendship towards each other, and so it seems only natural that the gods wouldn't mind to share their domain with the elves in the slightest. Now we can move right on to the places we can find in Asgard. Thor resides in a land called Thrudheim, a place of might, and it is there where he made his home, a truly grand hall called Bilskirnir. And this hall could get no better praise than from the king of the gods himself, for it was Odin who said, quote, 500 rooms and 40 there are, I ween in Bilskirnir built. For all the homes whose roofs I beheld, my sons the greatest meseemed. End quote. Important thing to mention here is that the number of rooms in Bilskirnir is today presumed to be a confusion with a previous part of the poem in which Odin speaks of the 540 doors of Valhalla, and indeed such a distinct similarity like 540 doors and 540 rooms seems way too unlikely to be just a coincidence. Nevertheless, it is more than obvious from the passage we've read that Odin's account of Bilskirnir's grandeur in a sense of its beauty is quite genuine. And speaking of Odin, even though he called his son's hall to be the greatest he had ever seen, his is actually the hall that is considered the most beautiful on all of Cosmos. It stands in a field called Gladsheim, and once more we let Odin himself illustrate the picture of this wonderful place. Quote, "The fifth is Gladsheim, and gold-bright there stands Valhall stretching wide, and there does Odin each day choose the men who have fallen in fight. Easy is it to know, for him who to Odin comes and beholds the hall, its rafters are spears, with shields is it roofed, on its benches are breastplates strewn. Easy is it to know, for him who to Odin comes and beholds the hall, there hangs a wolf by the western door, and over it an eagle hovers." End quote. And so does Valhalla stand in Asgard as a marvel for all beings in the cosmos to behold. However, we will save any more details about it for a separate video. Furthermore, there is yet another hall where Odin resides from time to time, called Valaskjaf, roofed it with pure silver. The name of the hall, the Shelf of the Slain, has led some to claim this hall to be synonymous with Valhalla, but no concrete evidence that would confirm or disprove this notion has been uncovered to this day, and so the case is left to individual interpretation. What we know for certain, however, is that within this hall stands the high seat of Odin, called Hlidskjalf, from which the king of the gods oversees all that goes on in the 9 realms. It is not exactly clear as how this high seat looks like, but given that it provides Odin with such a sight beyond sight, we may imagine it to be like a watchtower or observatory. Even though Odin has 2 halls in Asgard, Valhalla remains his favorite, and so we could think of Valhalla as a place where he goes to amuse himself with observing the combat of the fallen braves that fill the hall, listen to their stories of valor and triumph, and overall have a good time, while Valaskjalf, and more precisely Hlidskjalf, is like his study, where he goes to ponder over the hidden truths he has learned and watch over the cosmos in his ever-going search for more undiscovered wisdom. Continuing on our way through Asgard, yet another place we could come upon was the dwelling place of Ullr, the son of Sif, the wife of Thor. However, Ullr is only a stepson of the thunder god, and his real father is a figure today unknown to us, just as are any concrete details about the nature of Ullr. Ullr's place in Asgard is called Idalir, meaning yew dales, a fitting name considering that the yew trees were considered to have been the best wood for making bows, and one of the few things we know about Ullr is that he was a truly formidable archer. Other than the fact that his hall lies within Idalir, nothing else is known about it, so we can only guess at what his home looked like. But given that he was a good archer, and also a very skilled hunter, I think that one could imagine his dwelling as a simple hunter's lodge, surrounded by deep forests, close to a spring of fresh water, and filled with trophies and mounted heads of whatever beast he had hunted down. Another place we could come into on our journey is the land where Balder the Bride God dwells. Balder is the son of Odin and his wife Frigg, and he was beloved by all beings in cosmos, gods, men, giants and beasts alike. He was told to be so beautiful, kind and benevolent that he actually gave off a bright aura of light, thus he is often referred to as the Bride God or the Shining One. And Balder's land and home in Asgard would reflect his best attributes. His dwelling is a place called Brythjablik, although it is not clear if this is the name of the land where Balder made his home, or the name of the hall he built for himself there. Brythjablik, meaning white shining, was immensely fair and bright place, and it was said that no evil would dare to set foot there. This might have been because even the vilest creatures respected and even loved Balder, or because the light that emanated throughout the land prevented them from trespassing there. Whatever the case, these speculations are all that we can say about Balder's domain, as Brythjablik is not mentioned again in any source we possess today. Now the next hall I want to mention is Glitnir, the Hall of Forseti. Forseti is a very cryptic god about whom we know even less than of Ullr. Quite frankly, the only mention we have of him is Odin giving an account of his hall. Quote, "The 10th is Glitnir, its pillars are gold, and its roof with silver is set. There most of his days does Forseti dwell, and sets all strifes at end." End quote. I think that this description depicts the look of the hall quite clearly. However, it is the last 2 lines from this passage that interest us. From them we could guess that Forseti might have been a god associated with law and justice, as the line "sets all strife at end" could implicate that he hears out disputes of those that come to him, and he then holds some judicial power over their outcome. Alas, that is all we know and what we can speculate about Forseti. Moving on, one of the last lands we'll mention belongs to Vidar, the son of Odin, and the giant Asgrid. Vidar's land is called Vithi, and nothing else is known about it other than it is a land filled with growing trees and high grass. Not even any hall is mentioned to be there. Vidar is an interesting god, but most of what we know about him concerns his role in the events of Ragnarok, and thus I would like to keep any information about him for a later date. Now, there are a few more halls that are claimed to be in Asgard, but other sources contradict that notion, and so we will leave these halls alone for now and talk about them when they appear in future stories we'll cover. There are of course more places and gods in Asgard than just those we have mentioned. However, most of them have their own stories that depict them better than I ever could, and so I will save them for future videos. And one of these stories will be the subject of the next video. For there was once a war that threatened to end the rule of Odin and his line, a primordial war that shook the very foundations of Asgard. But this will be all for today, and I bid you all farewell. Until next time.